Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Before we meet today's guest, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're great companies. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, and then visit each one of these sponsors. I guarantee you'll be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, and more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started selling online tickets at your school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper, the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. If you go to Gipper.com, their team will show you how to create world-class marketing content that will help you celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to Huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to Huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. Their interactive touchscreen, that's right, touchscreen video consoles are a great way to showcase your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, check out their testimonials, okay, and then order one of their great products. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser with little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, it's the best online fundraising platform out there. We used it at our school. Tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our finance office loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com to get started. That's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also something you're going to use every single day, like I did. Scheduling, communication with coaches, parents, student athletes, your state association, athletic eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't work on that every single day? Uploading forms. If you're an AD, Home Campus is going to help you do your job better. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your parents, even your coaches, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they'll also connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that data is tremendously valuable when you're meeting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is currently in North Carolina, but she's from Wisconsin. Has a tremendous story that I'm excited to have her share with you. She is a former college athlete, basketball player. She got into running. And when I say she got into running, she's doing marathons. She's doing ultra marathons. She's a writer. She's a coach. And just very excited to have as our guest today, Lyndsay Walter. So, Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, if you have not come across Lindsay, she's very active on Twitter and on LinkedIn. She's got a really cool story. Like a lot of stories. There's some joy. There's maybe a little bit of sorrow there, but I think the theme is perseverance and victory, and definitely living your best life. So, Lindsay, I'm going to let you kind of tell that story, but we always start out. We like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own, high school and college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Lyndsay Walter origin story?
So I was born in Slinger, Wisconsin, and I grew up there, small little town, but super great. I was diagnosed with alopecia when I was 2 years old. It's an autoimmune hair loss condition. There's two kinds. There's universalis, which is total body hair. That's the kind I have. So no hair in your head, eyebrows, eyelashes, arm hair, leg hair, nothing like that. Alopecia areata is the other kind. And, that, in my opinion, is the more difficult kind to have because you can have all of your hair and then you can lose it. It might all grow back. It might kind of grow back. You just don't know. It's very unpredictable. Whereas for me, I lost it at 2 and it's never coming back. But so I'm 33, and so I lost it when I was 2. And at that time, even growing up, social media wasn't big. There was no one in my school or community with alopecia. So it was very hard to deal with. It was very isolating and lonely, just not knowing anyone or even seeing anyone, whether it's, on Twitter or, in a magazine or anything like that. And I was bullied a ton as a kid for just wearing a wig, not having eyebrows and eyelashes. And it was just really hard. I never told teachers because I didn't want my peers to like me even less or, anything, more negative to come with that. And it was just something that I never understood because I was so quiet. I was so polite. I just, did all the right things and I was never mean to anyone. And I just never understood how people can make fun of me for something I couldn't help. Yeah, middle school was rough. High school was also rough. But also middle school was the time I discovered the game of basketball and I had such a natural talent for it. And it is something that I am forever so grateful for. It was this like really healthy outlet for me. I would go to school and it would be a rough day with kids, but I would just work really hard in school, get really good grades, and just come home and shoot hoops in my driveway for hours. And, I had this like new goal of being a good student and then getting a scholarship to play in college. And it really helped me to kind of, yes, like the teasing and the bullying still really continued, but I had basketball to look forward to. And that is something I'm so grateful for to, have had the opportunity to, start on varsity as a freshman, to break school records, to, have a lot of scholarship opportunities and it to turn into this incredible opportunity and to have achieved that dream was just really awesome and something I'm super grateful for. And so, yeah, I went to college, played basketball at Minnesota Duluth, and still very much during that time, I really was struggling with my alopecia. I hid my alopecia. I wore double-sided tape. I did that since I was in middle school, playing AAU basketball, high school basketball, just really everything. And during halftime, I can just remember this so vividly of, high school games. I would be in the stall and the assistant coach would come in and she would be like, Lindsay, 3 minutes. And I would just be freaking out because I'm trying to take this wig off my head, dry it off because it's so sweaty, and like reapply the tape to keep it on my head. My head had these like crazy open sores from the tape. It would be bleeding. And I would just still do what I had to do to keep that wig on, again, just to blend in with my peers and not stick out. I went to extremes just to keep my alopecia really hidden, and it was hard. It never really felt like me, but I didn't know like how to express that to people. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and it was just hard. College was the same thing, just really struggling like with my alopecia, and it wasn't until I took up running after college. There is Grandma's Marathon, which is a huge marathon in Duluth, Minnesota. I was never a runner. I never ran track or cross country. They would always try to get me to join the team, and I'd be like, no, no, the basketball court is about as much as I want to run. And then just, being like an athlete my whole life, I'm so like internally motivated and driven and just competitive within myself. And so I ran Grandma's Marathon my senior year and I loved it. There's something about running 26.2 miles that is so different and gave me like such an incredible feeling that basketball never did. I think basketball, team sports, and I think team sports are so great. You learn so many lessons and they're so important. But something about running that I had just really come to love is that it was like me. I was the one doing it. Like I had to be the one running
Right.
26 miles. In basketball, you're having a bad shooting game, but you have a teammate who's having a great shooting game. So it kind of makes up, or, you can play really great defense and get some rebounds. Whereas running, it's just like it's you. You're the one that has to run the miles. And so I knew I was going to take up running when I was done playing basketball. And I loved just the feeling. It was so freeing and it was empowering. And I loved just like how strong and empowered I felt. And yes, I started running marathons all over the country. I loved just being in a new city where no one knew me, no one knew about my alopecia. I didn't have to explain myself. And, the running community is just all about everyone's coming there for one common goal. Like we all just want to cross the finish line. And I felt just such a part of a group. Everyone looks different, everyone trains differently. But my alopecia wasn't really something that I was focusing on. And the more I was running, the more I was getting confidence in myself. I was becoming just a better runner, just learning so much about like how to train for a marathon and all of that. And yeah, running has just been awesome. I've ran 52 marathons and then took up running 100s now, training for another 6-day race. And I think running is just, it's like my me time. I love it. I do it almost every day. I just look forward to it. It just makes me feel the most like me. And to think of like where I was, as a kid, hiding underneath my wig and really struggling, and now, living my life with like my bald head out shining. It's just like the most incredible feeling. But yeah, I guess that's kind of me.
Well, again, you took us all the way into segment three, but that's fine. I want to go back to your high school,
Yeah.
middle school and high school. As a career teacher, um, and again, as all our listeners, we all, went through grade school and middle school and high school, and it's enough of a minefield without, adding something on like you had with the alopecia. Um, were there any, I'm hoping the answer is yes, did you have teachers or coaches that, knew of your condition, and were supportive of you, during your journey? Anybody stick out that you remember?
Yeah, I had the best high school coach I ever could have asked for. He was so intense. He would scream, he'd wear these cowboy boots, and he was just like known for that. But he also had like the gentlest heart, and what he knew about my alopecia. I didn't talk to him much about it because I was so embarrassed, but I also know that he had my back like 1,000%. And there was an instance in a game where the student section started making fun of me for my alopecia, and I just remember I was like running right past the bench and he looked right at me and he was like, show him on the court. And then I broke the school record that night and single-handedly beat the other team, like point wise. Again, that wasn't like my goal, but like it just happened. And he is someone who he would just say like those little things to me and it just meant everything. And he still is like such a great mentor and friend today. But yeah, he was like the best coach I ever could have asked for. I'm really grateful for him. I think yeah. So definitely my high school coach.
That's so great to hear, and it's so great that he's still coaching. Let's give him a shout out. What was his name?
Steve Reinhardt.
All right, Steve Reinhardt, if you're listening to this, thanks for all you do with kids and coaching and education. Real quick before we take a break, the recruiting process, how was that? You mentioned you had some offers. Why Minnesota Duluth? And what's something from that experience playing there that really sticks out for you?
That was such an exciting time. I think to have this like dream to like work towards, and to have schools like interested in me, the letters, the coaches that would come to my games in the AAU, it was just like really exciting and it was encouraging. it can definitely be like a stressful process. But I think just knowing that I was given like a lot of opportunities, whether it was to go Division 1 or Division 2, I definitely like took every letter I got so seriously, whether it was no matter what division it was or anything. I would research the school, I would look it up, and just went open minded into all of it. And I think that was the best thing to do, is just to not kind of put all your eggs in one basket, but to really like do your research and find out like where's going to be like the right fit for you, and to just never think that you're better than a school or anything like that. I think that's really important. If a coach is like taking the time to reach out to you, just being like respectful of that and so appreciative of it. And I think I learned a lot in the process going on tours. And for me, going to Division 2, just, I loved basketball, but I also wanted like the college experience as well. And I think for me, it was the perfect amount of like basketball and, being there in the off season in the summer, but also like I got to enjoy college as well. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to go to the WNBA or anything like that. But I just think it was just really awesome, and to receive and to receive a scholarship and have like the financial side of it like really taken care of. And I'm just grateful for that. I took it very seriously. I had really great grades, and just yeah, I was like, I'm gonna make the most out of this opportunity. And my studies were like everything to me as well. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, again, just a great, great story. For our listeners, our guest today is Lyndsay Walter. She's a runner, she's a coach, she's a writer, and we're going to take our first break, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but for things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school is assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com for more information. Hometown Ticketing, it's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphic solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, you're going to find out how you can create world-class marketing content to celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high schools and colleges across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. How simple? Even I can do it. That's Gipper.com. And we want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and it was just fantastic. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Lyndsay Walter, an athlete, a coach, a runner, a writer. And let's talk a little bit more about running. You mentioned a little bit. You were not a runner. You were not a track person in high school or college. And then that first running experience, very few people, I think their first experience is a marathon. But, you know, why did you make that decision to run that marathon? And now how has that turned into 50 plus marathons along with some ultra marathoning, something that I have never even thought about doing?
Yeah, I think seeing the marathon in my college town, it was just really fun to like watch everyone running, and just like how excited people were at the finish line. There's just like something about watching that really like was very intriguing to me. I think just being again like so internally like motivated and competitive within myself, I knew I wanted to run a marathon to cross it off my bucket list. My plan was just like one and done. I had no intention of how it snowballed and everything that it's became today. But yeah, that's how I ran the first one, just kind of wanting to do it. And there is something in me that just like really clicked, and I knew I was going to take up marathons after that. I think just like the determination and like the self like preservation it takes and everything. I was just so intrigued by that. It was so empowering. And I think, I had basketball my whole life, but knowing that was coming to an end, like what would I do to fill my time? Like I need something competitive. I need something athletic that's allowing me to like work hard and challenge myself. So for me, it was an easy switch to turn to running. Again, I knew nothing about running. And so researching it, like how do you train? Like how do you fuel? Kind of all of that stuff was just so exciting to me. I've never hit that burnout that, sometimes people get with running because it's just like really fun for me and I do it like because I love it. And so yeah, it's just kind of the marathon. There's so many marathons. I love to travel. I love being in a new city. It really helped me just kind of embrace like myself and my alopecia, and also kind of in a way, I guess, escape my alopecia just because when I was in a new city, no one knew about it. It wasn't something I had to talk about or feel worried about. But yeah, so that was like also really exciting to me too.
We talked before we started recording this thing, we talked about where we were going to go. I think I want to shift gears. We try not to ambush people, but you and I connected. I saw your post on Twitter, and I believe it was about the photo from, was it the London Marathon? Okay.
Yes.
Um, Again, it's such, your story is such a great story. Would you mind sharing that about the photo and the subsequent things that happened with our listeners? Because I think it's just very powerful.
Yeah, so I ran the London Marathon and it was my 52nd marathon and it was incredible. I mean, I'm in London, like it just was like such a great marathon for me. I've only bought two race photos in my whole life. It was after my very first marathon, Grandma's Marathon, because I thought that's what everybody did was, buy the race photo. I always look at them after marathons, but mine, never looked good. It just, yeah. But after London, I had looked at the race photos and I saw this one almost to the finish right outside of Big Ben. Like my stride just looked so great. I was like, wow, I look
It
athletic.
was a
I look
great photo.
fit. Yeah, I loved it. And, I was on like such a high of, London. And so I bought the race photo and I was just, yeah, just like so happy, came back to the States. And I posted the photo and originally, I don't remember exactly what I said, but something like grateful for the London Marathon, like thankful for running, something along like those lines. And immediately the very first kind of comment that came through was, "You look like a sick, ugly man." And for me, that felt like the ultimate gut punch. When I was a kid growing up, just dealing with my alopecia, my biggest fear was that someone would think I wasn't a girl because I didn't have hair. I was constantly told, like, girls are pretty when they have hair. You need to wear your wig. Like, that's what girls do. And so when someone calls me a male or bore anything references me to anything like that, it is such a trigger for me. And it has been my whole life because it was just like the biggest fear for me was for someone to think like I wasn't feminine and that I wasn't a girl. And so to see that come through right away, you're on this high after London, and then I was just like taken down. And so I deleted the photo right away. Just felt so self-conscious and I could just feel myself spiraling into like this really like negative space. And so I just like went on like a short little jog, and during that, I didn't bring my phone with me, no music, just my thoughts. And I kept thinking, like, wow, like, no, you've ran 52 marathons, like, you've ran 100 milers, like, you've won 100 milers, like, you've overcame so much. And like, and I know like there's trolls out there, there's negative people out there, but it still doesn't feel good. And it's not always easy to just brush things off. And I think when people are mean to me, it's like such extremes that it's like I would just never think to do that to someone. So when it happens to me, it's just like it's just so hard, and it's not like I don't know. And so it's just like yeah, it's just like hard to kind of hear that. And so I posted, and then I like got back and I, just was reminding myself of everything. So I posted the photo again, was like, no, I'm not letting negativity win. Like, I love this photo of myself and I like truly do. And then it just went crazy. Like, it went crazy viral with like 9 million views, like 13,000 comments, and, 95% of it was just so positive and kind and nice. And it just meant the world to me that so many people were taking time out of their day, even if it's just for a minute, to like encourage and like be positive towards me. I feel like that's always what I try to do to other people, but to have that really come back at me in such like a positive and uplifting way, it was just like the best thing. And then to get to share my story with like the Today Show and People Magazine and just all of this to bring awareness and education to alopecia, that was like such an incredible thing. I think, people see a bald head and they don't know it's alopecia, and like that's okay. But to like be open-minded and like to put yourself in someone else's shoes, like it's not just losing the hair on your head. Like there's such an emotional toll that comes with that. Like it's not just hair. But yeah, it really turned into this really positive, like full circle thing. I did reach out to the individual and just said, I forgive you. And he still stood by what he said, and that he is not sorry about it and he does not take it back. But it just turned into like this really great thing. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened after London.
Well, and again, I saw that, and I'm just reading. I'm just reading everything that you just shared, and I'm just going, wow, what a, even without the troll, it's a tremendous story. I mean, forget the troll. Okay, it's a tremendous story on its own merit. Um, we're going to go and take a break. And then when we come back, Lindsay has a program that I think you as listeners could really get involved with. It's really cool. And I'm going to let her tell about it. So again, let's take that break. But when we come back, we're going to have more of runner, coach, and writer Lyndsay Walter. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to showcase your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school's history, your proudest moments, and your top role models. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks on a fundraiser and then got little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our finance office loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Start raising money and funding your program with snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Lindsay, again, you and I were talking before we recorded today. Share with our listeners about Lindsay's Little Pals, and more importantly, how can they get involved?
Yeah, so Lindsay's Little Pals is a pen pal program that I started for kids and teens. Now it's young adults and adults, really just anyone with alopecia in any stage of it. And whether you just lost your hair, you're losing it, it's all came back. Like you're still in alopecia no matter what. And I have pen pals all over the country. And it's just something that I started as a way to be that person that I needed when I was younger. Again, had I known or even been writing a letter with someone who had alopecia, that would have made a world of difference to me. Just to, have someone who really knew like how I felt. Just because like it is such an emotional thing. And I think for me, something that was hard, and I know people really meant well, but they would always say, I understand. And in my mind, I'd be like, you don't understand, like you have hair, but to get to be that person and that mentor and that friend to be like, no, like I've walked that journey. Like, I haven't had hair my whole life. I've been bullied, I've went through wigs, I've done like all of these things. And to really just to like actually get to say that and be, that hope and that inspiration and that friend or listening ear to someone has been awesome. The connections that I've made, And just like their growth has been just really awesome. Yeah, so it's just really anyone with alopecia. I am the one person writing all of the letters, just because the connections are like very personal, but I just love the way people are always like willing to help and support. But yeah, Lindsay's little pals for anyone with alopecia.
Now, since you started the program, and again, you mentioned, you're writing all the letters, what are some of the responses that you've gotten from, after you have returned a letter to that, young person?
Um, Man, there's like just no feeling that can compare to it. Like I say it all the time, but there's like no race medal or 100-mile buckle that like compares to like what my pen pals and like getting the letters means to me. I think there's just something about writing a letter that is just like so personal. And the fact that someone is like taking time like out of their day to write it. I think in a world that's like so digital and it's so easy to send an email and just the extra step, it's something tangible that you have. I am like super old school, like I'm technically a millennial, but I'm just really old school. Like I always love getting mail, I've always loved writing letters. But yeah, it has been just really awesome. So when someone will reach out to me and say like, I want to join your program, or like my son or daughter does. They'll tell me like a little bit about them, and I will send them a letter with my photo and just sign it and just kind of welcome them to it, ask them, just some kind of basic questions, get to know them and how they respond. Kind of know, like, sometimes it starts off like very surface level, not necessarily about alopecia, but I think just the fact that they are writing to someone like with alopecia, there's just such a connection right away. And it's just awesome. So, it's a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's about like what's going on in school, or, different kind of sports teams. Sometimes it's like really deep things with alopecia and just some struggles with it. And if it's someone where I'm able to like jump on a Zoom call with them, talk with their parents, just kind of whatever I can do to help and be supportive. So it definitely has become more than just writing letters. But I like love it. Anything I can do to help, just I think, knowing where I am with my alopecia now, just to get to be that like blessing to someone else is like just such an incredible feeling.
No, absolutely. Paying it forward. Well, if one of our listeners wanted to, well, follow you and add you to their network or help out, what's the best way they can do that? Is there a website, or follow you on Twitter? What should they do if they want to help out?
Yeah, I don't have a website, which is something that I have been meaning to do for a long time. But honestly, just an email, lhwalter3@gmail.com, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just I'm like a really easy person to find. But yeah, however you can like reach out to me. I check messages all the time and stuff. But yeah, yeah, I just love the support. People will, send me, stationery that I can use to send out my letters, just because I like do fund everything myself. And I mean, I'm so happy to do it, but also really grateful that people want to help. I think for now, especially, like it is something that I am going to keep with just myself as far as like writing the letters. But there has been two instances where I've had people just kind of opened it up to the community to, provide like inspiring, encouraging notes and comments. And I've printed all of them out and then put them in my like letters. And so allowing people to also kind of help through that way. But for now, I am the one just kind of doing all of the letters, just because it is a lot of personal information.
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, again, we'll give out that contact information again at the end of the podcast. But, Lindsay is very active on Twitter. And again, if you want more information, Google the story. Just a great, great story. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank another one of our great sponsors, Home Campus. If you're an athletic director, Home Campus is something you will use every single day, and you're going to love it. Home Campus is going to help you with scheduling. It's going to help you with communication with your coaches, with your student athletes, with your parents, with your state association. Home Campus is going to streamline your athletic clearance and eligibility program. Who doesn't work on that every single day? And Home Campus is going to make your job easier. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to their website, sidelineinteractive.com, and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we used it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Lyndsay Walter, athlete, a runner, a coach, a writer, and has an incredible story. If you somehow tuned in the middle of this, go back and listen to the beginning. Lyndsay, one of the things we try to do with our podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you have seen in your career from coaches or ADs or leaders, or maybe things that you try to do in your role as a leader that you would consider a best practice that you can share with our listeners?
I'd say definitely like knowing your players and knowing like how to push them and get the most out of them. And also being empathetic, I think, and leading by example. I think those are kind of the three things that like come to mind. I think, every like player, every teammate, every athlete is different. So kind of getting to know them, how you need to coach them to get the most out of them. And yeah, I think too, like leading by example. I think, I am a run coach. And so, if I'm not going to be working hard and pushing myself, it doesn't really feel right that I would be telling my runners to do that, or something that I'm not willing to do myself, whether it comes to, doing the extra things like strength training and yoga and just doing so many things. Like I do that myself. So being able to like really tell my athletes, like, no, it really does make a difference. I do that. And just being able to say that like firsthand. Yeah, so I'd say leading by example as well. And just also like in general, just like taking the time to be an empathetic and like caring person and coach. I think like wins and losses, like all of that is like fun and it's important and it's exciting, but also you remember your coaches who really like cared for you as like a person and not just as an athlete. There's so many things that people deal with. And so I think just, yeah, just, you're more than just an athlete. There's so much more to everyone than just what they do in athletics.
Yeah, you mentioned previously, you mentioned your high school coach and how much you admired and appreciated, your relationship with him. But you just mentioned teammates, looking back, at your high school and your college days. And again, certainly we can all acknowledge that kids can be cruel. But sometimes, that skill level, and whether it's basketball or football or soccer, can, oh wow, well, Jake's pretty good at football. Lindsay's, good at basketball. And all of a sudden they are nicer to you. Do you have some memories of some teammates that, were nice, beyond your ability in sports?
Yes, definitely. I think again, just like being like a freshman, playing on varsity, starting and all of that, I think there definitely was some really great people who like just wanted to win and they didn't care that I was like younger. They saw me as like an equal and someone who was like there just to help the team in any way that I could. And like vice versa as well, just having respect for like the upperclassmen, learning from them and knowing that they have been through this a few times. And so like listening to them. But yeah, I definitely did have some really great teammates. I think also that was a challenge as well. I think, like when you do excel at something, that can bring out like a very kind of negative and jealous side of people. So I think just, just staying true to like who you are and knowing that I, wanted to be someone who worked hard and led by example and was a really great teammate and just doing the right things. And I think, looking back, like when I was inducted into my high school Hall of Fame and, my coach, he said that like I was his favorite player and that I was the hardest worker and just so many things that I wanted to be. Just knowing that I achieved that, not from like a stat standpoint, but just, being like the hardest worker and, someone who like never quit and never gave up, like that means more to me than it does to like hold school records because I feel like your character is something that you'll always remember and like can cherish. Like stats will like come and go, people will break your records and whatnot, but knowing that you were an athlete that like your coach loved to coach, I think like that's the most important.
Oh, no, no question. And that was going to be my follow up. Have you had a chance to go back to your high school? Obviously, you have. Being inducted into their Hall of Fame. What was that experience like?
It was just so incredible. I think just thinking of where I was in high school and, just how much I really struggled with my alopecia, but it was like such a hidden struggle that no one even really knew about it and just how hard it was for me. And people, after everything that has came from just like my alopecia and embracing it and like all of these stories and opportunities and people, will reach out all the time and say like, wow, I had no idea like you went through that. Just because I like hid it so well. And I think just looking back, basketball was like everything. And now just all I've been able to do because of that, I finally feel like this huge weight has been lifted off my shoulder. Like in my photo, I am still wearing my wig. And I just like remember that like so vividly. And like the photo I chose for that just like means so much to me because I like just remember that game and just everything. But yeah, it was just such an incredible moment. I can't even really like put into words just how much it like meant to me, but it's like such an incredible honor.
Oh, that's just so cool to hear. Okay. Well, this has been just so cool, listening to you and hearing your story. Thanks again for joining us. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you certainly know your way around the world of sports. So we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director or maybe a brand new coach on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in the toolbox. So please stay with us. When we come back, we're going to find out what Lyndsay Walter is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the toolbox segment of the podcast. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your parents, or your coaches, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, those people that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable piece of information to have when you're visiting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for you that's going to let you take your athletic program from good to great. athleticsurveys.com. Check them out. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting today with Lyndsay Walter. She's a coach, she's a writer, she's a runner. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new, we'll say a brand new leader on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Lyndsay, what 3 items are going to go into your new leadership toolbox?
So some kind of writing utensil, a positive mindset, and gratitude. When you come in and you're a leader, you are the one that is in control of the environment and the attitude. And so how you're acting in your demeanor is directly going to reflect like how the game is going to go, how practice is going to go, how the meeting is going to go. So coming in with like a positive, like optimistic mindset, even if like the situation is tough and challenges like present themselves, or, if you're a coach and your team just lost by a lot or you had a terrible practice or whatever, like you're the one that ultimately like controls off that and people feed off your energy. So having your writing utensil that you're going to use to write down something positive or something that went great, even if the game or practice or meeting didn't go how you wanted it to, always starting it off with something grateful and that you're positive for. Something I do every morning before I start my run or start my day. I have my gratitude journal and I write at least 3 things that I am like grateful for. And I think it just clears my mind and starts it off in the right way. I think like your mindset and your attitude is everything. If you go in, negatively and thinking something, like you're just the one who's in control of it. And I think, kids are looking up to you, your peers are looking up to you, coworkers. So ultimately, like you're the one that just like, kind of like dictates and decides like how things are going to go. So you need a writing utensil to write something that you're positive for, coming in with a grateful heart and a positive mindset.
Boy, I'm not surprised at all with the tools that you mentioned, because that just comes out as you were sharing your story. Um, Thanks so much for sharing with our listeners today. And one more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, maybe follow you on Twitter, add you to their network, or help out some way with Lindsay's Little Pals, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. I will say email is lhwalter3@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. But like I said, I am on Twitter, Lindsay Hannah3, Instagram, Lindsay Hannah3. Feel free to shoot me a message. I do check my messages. But yeah, again, yeah, I just am grateful for just the opportunity to come and share my story, to bring awareness to alopecia, and to just also share about my pen pals.
Well, again, thanks for taking some time out of your busy day to be with us. All the best with your next big run coming up. And we're
Thank
going to have
you.
to get you back on the podcast down the road.
Thank you for having me. It was such an honor.
Oh, well, the honor was ours, but thank you. For listeners, just a reminder that we upload the Zoom recordings of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. And we appreciate you listening. We do this just about every day with new content. So come back and take another listen to our next episode on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.